everyone. So before we are going to discuss this morning, let's have the prayer. So, meron question you want to discuss? Sorry.
So let us pray. Most precious and heavenly Father, Lord, thank you sa bago naman dito natin sa extension sa aming pinagawin karon. Karon, Lord, nga umpisa naman kami sa aming activity. May guide us, Lord, and give knowledge and wisdom sa aming reporter na kung sa dili may tindihan naman ang bilang po. This is all I pray in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior.
Amen.
So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you.
So please, Miss Secretary, check the attendance.
This is
Mr.
Kasama Mr. Bong.
But before that, we are going to present our objectives. The chapter, the student should be able to first explain what scoring rubric is. Second, cite the parts of a scoring rubric. Third, distinguish between holistic and analytic rubrics and between general and task-specific rubric. Next, cite the importance of a scoring rubric. So that is the learning outcome. So hoping and we are aiming that after the discussion, we are going to meet these all learning outcomes. So hopefully na mag-cooperate kayo sa amin. So we already done the chapter 4. So now let's proceed to the chapter 5, which is the developing the scoring rubric. So, Miss Versalit, please stand up. Miss Versalit, so, have you already encountered the word scoring rubrics or the rubrics?
Yes. In every activity that teacher gave to us, they are giving us scoring rubrics on how they will give us scores.
So what about you, Mr. Lulu? What is your opinion or idea about this scoring rubric?
So, as Miss Versalit said, it is given by the teachers. The criteria or the standards and how they will be grading our performances, our tasks, and everything that will be given.
Exactly. So your idea was great. So of course the scoring rubric is one of the guidelines where the teacher will be one of the guidelines na kung saan gagamitin ng teacher para ma-rate niya or mabibigyan niya ng grado yung performance task na binigyan niya sa kanyang estudyante. So let's proceed. So after learning that performance-based and authentic assessment consists of product-based and process-based assessment. Let us now learn how to score a product produced or the process performed by the learners by means of a scoring rubric. Of traditional assessment do not require scoring rubric because they have definite correct answers and all you do is to check if it is wrong. The essay type of a test or a form of product-based assessment calls for scoring rubric and also with other product-based assessment and process-based, authentic or performance-based assessment because the answers are far beyond yes or no, true or false, and they have no single correct answer. So, the meaning of a scoring rubric is a coherent set of criteria for students' work that includes description of levels of performance, quality, and criteria. So, in other words, scoring rubric is a learning assessment tool used to evaluate written outputs, products, and performance-based tasks of students. It's used to effectively quantify performances of students. So, scoring rubrics are typically employed when a judgment of quality is required and may be used to evaluate broad range of subjects and activities. For instances, scoring rubrics can be most useful in grading essays or in evaluating projects such as workbooks. Judgments concerning the quality of given writing sample may vary depending upon the criteria established by evaluator or may be more interested in the persuasiveness of the argument. A high quality essay is likely to have a combination of these and other factors. By developing a predefined scheme for the evaluation process, the subjectivity involved in evaluating an essay becomes more objective. So, do you have an idea about the parts of a scoring rubric?
Parts?
Parts. Or have you encountered before a scoring rubric?
Yes.
So, what composes it?
Two major parts.
What are those?
Coherent sets of criteria and description of levels of performance.
Yes. So the parts of the scoring rubrics are just like what Donna had said. It is composed of coherent sets of criteria and description levels of performance for these criteria. So here is the example. So we can find the criteria here and the description.
So, so before we're going to proceed to our next topic, so let us first have a question. So, in your own opinion, so what is the main purpose of a scoring rubric? Ano may idea?
Okay, the main purpose of a scoring rubric is to identify whether the performance of your students is have a good performance and having in other words, you are an effective teacher.
Yes. What about William Russell? What do you think is the main purpose of having a scoring rubric?
So for me, the purpose of having schooling rubrics in any activities consist or happening in our school are to have a definite scores or the results of the students and to minimize the subjectivity of the teachers doing reading.
So, great idea. Okay, Usman? What do you think is the main purpose? Usman, what do you think is the main purpose of having a scoring rubrics?
First of all, for me, the main purpose of providing a scoring rubric from a certain activity is first to avoid such biases, and in order to test the goodness of performance of everyone, the purpose of the scoring rubric is to pansya yang ano ba yung term dyan? Yes, yung appropriate. And if ever na some performer were make ano tawag sa magreklamo or magreklamo sila
Complain.
Petition.
Complain.
Petition? Magreklamo is mayroon kang may pakita sa kanila na based on their performances. That's all.
Yes, correct. Donna?
Yes. So, scoring rubric is divided. There are two types of grading system: norm grading system and criterion grading system. So, in criterion grading system, the scoring rubric is under there, which is your graded based on the criteria, not with the performance of your classmates. So, I find it fair because there is criteria, diba? You just have to, if you want to have a high grades, then follow the criteria, diba? So that's all.
So great. As what Osman says. No, criteria is important just because, of course, criteria is also our guidelines as a students. No, if the teachers will assign you to do some activity or a performance task, just like for example a role play, so the professor will make a criteria, and in that criteria will serve as your guidance kung ano ba dapat yung gagawin mo or ano ba dapat yung goal mo, or as a performer, ano ba, yun dapat yung susundin mo para makakakuha ka ng high grade. So,
And
yun.
may iwasan din siya yung irrelevant na mga gagawin. So, para hindi ma-misunderstand ng mga estudyante, so, magkuhan sila, yung pag-present mo ng rubric, alam na nila kung ano yung
Yes.
flow ng activity.
Opo, so before ka magpapagawa ng task, i-relay mo muna yung rubrics so that yung rubrics na yun ay magiging guidelines ng estudyante mo kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin or ano yung goal na dapat nilang abutin for them to have a high grade. So yun yun. Next.
Kasi diba,
What?
diba minsan merong nagre-reklamo kung bakit mababa yung grade. Paano kaya nag-grade ni ma'am? Ano kaya ang criteria sa grade, diba? So to avoid yun, dapat i-present talaga siya before.
Yes.
Yung nga yung sabi ko.
That is the purpose. So according to your answers about it's important, how can you define now what a scoring rubric is? According to your understanding, how can you define a scoring rubric?
How can you define?
Jenny, do in your own words. In the simplest explanation.
So for me, the scoring rubric is the guidelines of a student on how he or she will going to perform the specific activity that the teacher gives.
Yes. Do you have any idea? So no more, let's proceed. So, scoring rubric is a coherent set of criteria for students to work that indicates description of levels of performance quality on the criteria. So, in other words, scoring rubric is a learning assessment tool used to evaluate written outputs, products, performance-based tasks of students. So, what are the two types of a scoring rubric?
Holistic and
Coherent sets of criteria
and
description of the
Also performance for criteria.
Parts na.
So, the two parts of a scoring rubric are the coherent set of criteria and the description levels of performance of criteria. So in this example, where do you think you can find the coherent set of criteria and the description levels of performance of criteria?
Left side is the coherent set,
left side is the coherent set of
and the
criteria.
right side is the description of the performance test.
Yeah, from the scale.
So the current set of criteria includes description of levels of performance quality on criteria. While the description of levels of these criteria are the explicit descriptions of the performance and show how the score is derived and what is expected on the student. So the description levels of these criteria is here, while the coherent set of criteria is here because it talks about its quantity. So it means numbers or measurements. So why do you think we need to include the levels of performance in a scoring rubric? Levels
teacher is
The importance of including the level of performance.
why is it important?
Why is it important?
And to include the also
The levels of performance in the scoring rubric.
Yes. Just like for example,
Pero player expectation, consistency, performance.
Yes. Why? Why is it? Why?
Kasi nga para mapansya yung estudyante mo, yung hindi na sila mahirapan kung ano yung ipapagawa mo sa kanila na activity. And for a clearer expectation, yun naman talaga yung purpose ng scoring rubrics. So yun yung sundin nila.
So for clear expectation, it is very useful for the students and the teacher if the criteria is identified and communicated prior to completion of the task. Students know what is expected of them and teachers know what to look for students' performance. Similarly, students better understand what good or bad performance on a task looks like if levels of performance are identified, particularly if descriptors of it.
Okay na.
Second, more consistent and objective assessment. In addition to better communicating teacher expectations, levels of performance permit the teacher to more consistently and objectively distinguish between good and bad performance or between superior or mediocre and poor performance when evaluating students' work. Third, better feedback. Furthermore, identifying specific levels of a students' performance allows the teacher to provide more detailed feedback to students. The teachers and the students can more clearly recognize their areas and improvements. So, for example, after a graded activity, so the teacher now revealed the score. For example, there are two groups competing. After that, the teacher revealed the score of both, and the other one got higher than the other one. For example, the other group asked the teacher why they get lower score than the other ones. So now, because of the scoring rubric presented by the teacher, he or she now can tell or explain to the students why they get lower score than the others. So that is a form of better feedback for the teacher when he or she asked by the student.
so it means that, just like for example, the example she's given, so of course the teacher will give you some feedback if your performance ay kailangan ka ba talagang i-improve or nakuha mo ba yung goal na dapat gustong nakuha mo ba yung goal na in-expect ng teachers, or that is or maybe feedback na ibibigay ng teacher sa iyo ay negative or positive. And yun.
So now let us go to the two types of rubrics. So what do you think are the two types of the scoring rubric?
The analytic and the holistic rubrics.
Yes, analytic and holistic rubric. So what do you think is the meaning of analytic rubric, or what for you what is the difference between the analytic and holistic rubric?
Analytic means articulate performance for this criterion. And the holistic does not list separate levels of performance for criterion.
Yes. So analytic rubric means it checks the different dimensions of the performance of the students. And using this, can detailedly estimate the performance of the students based on specific criteria and scale.
So, in addition, so in analytic, if nagbasa kayo ng book, no, yung analytic doon na gina-explain is yung, ang pagbibigay ng criteria is parang separately siya, yung gina-isa-isa doon siya.
So while the holistic rubric, unlike the analytic rubric, the holistic rubric has a combined performance descriptor in one range or score. So analytic means more specified, while the holistic is combined performance na siya. So combined versus specific.
So, ang example ng holistic is just like, nagbigay ka ng activity, tapos yung criteria na binigay mo, or rubrics na binigay mo is yung, tawag din, yung beginner, satisfactory, tapos,
Ano siya? Ang holistic?
opo. Meaning, yung holistic, meaning ng holistic is yung, i-rate mo siya.
Yan ba yung mga
May
yung
quantity
excellent?
siya, may quantity siya.
Satisfactory?
With ano?
Ano ganun? Very satisfactory and
Yes,
poor?
and may ano siya, may accompany
Nakategorize
siya
na
ng
ba
number.
yung
Yes. So for example, the analytic rubric looks like this. So parts of an analytic rubric. So analytic rubric has a title. It tells about what the rubric is all about. Second, the description. It tells about the details about the task needed to produce or performed by the students. Third, criteria or components. It shows what aspects the students should be marked. Fourth, scale or scoring. Header of the rubrics. It shows the different levels of mastery of the students in every criteria or components. With the help of scale and scoring, we can access our students qualitatively and quantitatively. Lastly, performance descriptor. It describes and gives meaning to the quality, the performance shown by the students in every criteria or components and every scale of scoring. While in holistic rubric, yes, it has, it's just like analytic rubric. It also have title, description, scale and scoring, and performance descriptor. So in holistic rubric, it is easy to prepare, but not that specified like the analytic rubric. Because the performance descriptor, because of the performance descriptor of the holistic rubrics. In analytical, we can identify the strengths and weaknesses of the performance of the students depends on the criteria. The holistic rubric is easy to prepare, but the analytic rubric, we can find what is the good side or the bad side of the performance done by the students.
Mas detailed ang analytics.
Analytics. So, if you were to ask what do you prefer, analytic rubric or holistic rubric?
As a teacher, as a student.
As a teacher,
Holistic, i-exam.
Depende sa kwan. Depende sa binigay
Pero
na
ang
activity.
student kay analytic.
Depende sa activity.
Depende sa activity yan.
defend your stand. Defend your stand.
Di ba, Lord?
Why? Sige, ano? Donna. Defend your stand.
As a teacher, because holistic is easy to to create, to prepare than analytic. And then holistic is usually ginagamit ito siya when short lang yung time, yung mga simple lang na activity. Pero kung mga performance tasks na i-perform at the end of the semester, then you can use the analytic.
But for better feedback, for example, your students ask you about the score you give to them. Is holistic criteria still applicable or analytical criteria is much better?
Analytic.
Depende sa preparation ng student. Hindi ka mag-base sa kwan.
And di ba, pero kung holistic talaga yung gagamitin mo, wala rin namang magawa yung mga student mo. Kasi di ba sabi ni Sir, dapat sa isang classroom, consider yourself as the superior. So, pag holistic gamitin mo, hindi na sila mag-cool. Di ba?
So,
Kasi sa kwan,
pero nakadepende sa activity. Activity.
Depend your stand. Well, depends on the activity you give.
So, halimbawa, dali lang yung mga activity, tapos dira lang ka magparisod-isod sa analytic. So, ang criteria sa imong activity nga gipahimo, wala dito sa imong game prepare nga kwan. Rubric.
Yung sina.
For example, the holistic though.
Why do you think that giving rubric depends on the kind of activity you give to your students?
Kasi for me, it depends on the activity that teachers give to his or her students. For example, we can use holistic rubrics by means of group activity. So what are those? Ano yung ipan mo doon? First is the cooperation of the group. So pwede yun siya sa holistic rubric. Cooperation, yung unity, and how will you assist your group? So in terms of analytic, we can use analytic by individual performances. This is the example, excellent speaker. So how can you give him or her 10 or 12 points by changes in hand gesture? Kasi in analytic, it takes time to use. Unlike for the holistic rubrics na pwede mo siya gamitin in a few minutes or a couple of hours.
Yes.
Holistic.
So can you now differentiate the analytic rubric from the holistic rubric?
Yes.
Differentiate.
Differentiate between the analytic and holistic.
Differentiate.
For Bruce, tapos ito siya, kuhaan lang. Ay, kuhaan siya. Involve a large number.
Anyway, nag-gets ko yung i-explain namin.
Yes.
So, since nag-gets nyo naman yung i-explain namin, now, may opinion na kayo if what's the difference between the analytic and the holistic?
Yes.
Just in our own understanding.
According to what have you learned?
Yes, we need facts, we don't need your opinion. Charis!
Yay!
It's just charis.
Go na.
And Google seeing my answer.
Oh, wait. Sige, go.
I don't know. Okay, so the difference between holistic and analytic is first, the holistic is, as what I had heard, it's, as a teacher, it's very easy to create and then can be used in just simple performance tasks. Yon. While the analytical rubrics is, it's more detailed. Like for example, John, I'll give you 3 if you are an excellent speaker. Then what are the criteria or the requirements to be an excellent teacher? So yun, include 10 to 12 changes in the eye gesture and all. So it's more detailed compared to holistic. But holistic is easy to create than analytical rubrics. But just what Usman said, it depends on the performance task. If at the end of the semester, then you can use analytical for more detailed para mas ano ng mga student mo, mas maano talaga yung criteria, mas ma-achieve kasi nga detailed siya compared to holistic.
Yes.
Example na ginagamitan doon ng mga analytic rubrics, yung paggawa nyo ng book, di ba may dalawang judging yun? Kasi, ang ginamit din is analytic rubric. First, kapag nakita kung gaano yung kaganda yung ginawa nila na book. The second one, may improvement pa based doon sa book na ginawa nila doon. Kasi yun nga yung budget is it takes time yung sa analytic. Unlike doon sa holistic rubric na pwede mo siya gawin within this
Analytic rubric is as simple as it is specific. So in giving scores to the performance task done by the students,
It is graded guided with quantity, with numbers. For example, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. That is how you score the performance task. Then when that's when in holistic, it is scored with combined performance descriptor. Sa inyo, yung idea?
In my own understanding about the analytical and holistic rubric is that, for example, in analytical rubrics, di ba, it is depende kung siya nakastate ang bawat scoring niya. Like, for example, your teachers give you a performance task or grade group siya. Then, nagbigay siya ng creativity, cooperation, and content. Like for example, then nagbigay siya ng 5 or 3. Then sa 5, if your work is maganda, excellent, at saka nag-cooperate lahat ng grupo, bibigyan siya ng 5. Saka sa content, kung maganda yung content niya, bibigyan siya ng 5. Then sa 4 naman, if yung kung naka-state lahat doon yung naka-describe ang lahat ng bibigyan ng scores. In holistic rubrics is, yan for example, ganun din, nagbigay rin siya ng activity performance task. But naggamit lang siya na, for example, sabi niya, sa creativity, I will give you 10 points. Yun lang nakalagay. Sa content, I will give you 10 points. Wala nang description. Then sa cooperation, I'll give you 10 points for the total of 30%. Yun ang pagkakaintindi ko doon. Which is sa analytical is detailed yung binibigay niya na rubrics. Sa holistic is parang overall na lang siya. Yun ang general na lang siya.
Yan lang yung example ng analytic. Ito lang din. It's general versus specific. So, yun yun. Guess nyo yun. So, just like for example, good yan. Okay, that's it.
Additional. Advantage sa using sa analytic rubrics is mas makita mo yung ano niya, yung mga lapses or mga pagkukulang ng mga students in their activities or performance. Then sa holistic kasi is yung nagbigay ka ng low grades pero di mo ma-identify yung yung ganun na part.
Saan ka nagkulang? Saan ka nagkulang?
So, oras.
Sa time.
Okay, sa siya.
Next.
Ha? How to decide on appropriate criteria. So, in developing or selecting a rubric, the first question we ask is, what are the criteria for a good performance for a product that the rubric ought to assess? So yung malalaki sa isip mo is, ano ba dapat na criteria yung gagamitin mo para tawag dito masuri mo yung isang activity, yung isang performance, yung isang magandang performance o product na ginawa ng iyong estudyante. So, the criteria should be the most appropriate and most important aspect of quality work. Performance for a product as described in the learning outcomes and not the characteristic of the performance for a product task itself. So, in this point, you as the creator or you as the teacher, you are not basing just like for example, yung ginawa natin na yung sa Filipino board, di ba, na-observe natin na ang ganda nung unang performance yung sila ni Justin God, di ba, they are really prepared, no? Ang ganda ng set ng ano nila, and then, but their performance, the quality of their performance is not that, hindi masyadong na-satisfied yung judges. So, ang ibig sabihin nun, no, you as the creator of the, may question ka na you as the creator of that criteria, no? Hindi ka lang magbe-base doon sa performance, but also you are basing the quality of the performance. So, let's proceed. Example of aspect of quality performance or a product which will evidence of learning and the attainment of the learning outcome that should be assessed by a rubric are selection of subjects, analysis of a famous person, contribution to history, support with historical facts, and reasoning. So that is according to Brookhart 2013. So the example of a characteristic of the students' work performance or a product which should not be assessed by a rubric because they are not evidence of learning or a cover of a report on famous person and the visual references. So now let's proceed to the characteristic of the criteria for classroom. So we have here the first characteristic that we have is the appropriate. So each criterion represents an aspect of a standard curricular goal or structural goal or objective that students are intended to learn. So which means that you as a professor, no, na gumawa ng criteria, you must know if what is your goal or what is the purpose of that criteria na ginawa mo so that alam mo, so that if you grade ka ng student mo, alam mo kung ano yung purpose ng ginawa mo or ano yung goal mo kung bakit mo yung ginagawa sa estudyante. The second one, we have the definable. So, each criterion has a clear, agreed upon meaning that both students and teachers understand. So, it is definable. You must, in your criteria, no, you must need to know na yung criteria na binigay mo is definable. Meaning, alam mo at alam ng estudyante mo. So that if you relate that criteria sa iyong estudyante, no, may explain mo ito ng tama and then hindi misinterpret and then mas may maintindihan ng estudyante mo. And then yung gagawin ng estudyante mo, dahil naintindihan nila ng criteria mo is mamimit niya yung goal mo, yung expectation mo as a judger or as a teacher na nagpagawa ng performance. The next one is observable. Each criterion describes quality in the performance that can be perceived, seen, or heard, usually by someone other than the person performing. So next one is this observable. So which means, in the rubric na ginawa mo, the quality of the performance of your student must be described. Just like for example, no, nag-ask ka ng student mo to make an essay writing. So of course, ang gagamitin mo na rubrics is related dun sa scoring, related dun sa pinagawa mo na performance which is writing or writing an essay. So in that way, no, ma-observe mo yung pinagawa mo sa estudyante mo kung tama ba yung paggamit niya ng punctuation mark, kung tama ba yung grammar na ginamit niya, kung tama ba yung kung yung essay ba na ginawa niya is masyadong detailed, yun, dun mo malalaman. So, you must be observable.
Ibig sabihin ang gamit mo naman is analytic. Analytic rubrics.
Yes. Kasi, analytic yung gagamitin mo. Kasi sabi naman, di ba sabi natin kanina sa analytic is separate siya. Tapos, naano mo talaga. And then in that way, malalaman mo kung ano yung stress ng estudyante mo, ano ang weaknesses ng estudyante mo. Next one is distinct from one another. So each criterion identifies a separate aspect of learning outcomes. The performance is intended to assess. So, which means that the rubric you've created must be separated. So in this, distinct from one another. Yung kagaya ng sabi natin sa analytic, no, yung criteria na ginawa mo is separated. Just like for example in essay writing. So, yung content, yung cleanliness, yung related to the topic, kinakailangan yung pag-criteria ko, yung pag-judge mo yun, nun ay yung separate, yung iba yung grade ibigay mo dun sa cleanliness, dun sa content, just like what Siding said a while ago. So yun. Next one is complete. So, all the criteria together describe the whole of the learning outcomes the performance is intended to assess. So, in this fifth criteria, no, which means the rubric you've created must complete. So, there is a title, merong performance, merong level of performance, and then merong description, no? So, hindi ka makakagawa ng, hindi magiging perfect yung pag-grade mo ng isang estudyante if your criteria is not complete. Just like, for example, meron kang content, meron kang effort. Just like, for example, nagpagawa ka ng ano tawag ito? Nagpa-speech ka ng estudyante mo. Tapos hindi kumpleto yung criteria na binigay mo. So, you as a teacher, no, mahihirapan ka. No, mahihirapan ka sa magbigay ng grade ng estudyante mo kasi nga hindi complete yung criteria na binigay mo. Next one is able to support the descriptions along a continuum of equality. Each criteria can be described over a range of performance levels. So, in this last characteristic is, dito na yung time na you can give points na sa iyong estudyante kung ano ba yung performance na pinakita niya sa inyo. Deserve ba yung points na ibibigay mo na ganito or ganito. So, yun. So, next one, let's proceed to process of developing rubrics. So, the development of scoring rubrics goes through a process. So, the first step in the process entails the identification of the qualities and attributes that the teacher wishes to observe in the student's output that would demonstrate their level of proficiency. So, in the process of developing scoring rubric, you must first determine the learning outcome o kung ano ba yung i-assess mo, yung product mo or yung performance ng yung estudyante. Ano ba yung i-assess mo, yung product o yung performance ng estudyante. Then after that, nakabili ka na ng iyong gustong i-assess. Just like for example, gusto mong i-assess yung product. So, ang example ng product na yan, gusto mong i-assess yung process. So, ang example ng process na yan is like oral recitation. So, yun yung gusto mong i-assess. So, nakapili ka na. The next step na gagawin mo is, mag-decide ka na kung anong klase ng rubric yung gagamitin mo. It's holistic or analytic in that performance task na napili mo. So, after mo na nakapili ng rubrics na gagamitin mo, now, you will identify the level of performance or aspect of the product that reflect the learning outcome. So, in making rubrics, we should always include the level of performance because we can see the mastery skills of the student. Through this, we can see the mastery of the students. So, example is the level of performance. Yung sa example nun is yung sabi natin kanina yung below expectations, satisfactory, yun yung example, which is yun yung tinatawag natin ng holistic. So, any question with regard to the process of scoring rubrics? The next step after defining the criteria for the top level of performance is the identification and definition of the criteria for the lowest level of performance. So, yun yung sabi ko kanina, na yung after mo nakabili ng rubrics na gagamitin mo, which is yung holistic and analytic, doon ka na naman, proceed ka na naman doon sa pag-isa-isa mo nung criteria, which is yung sabi ko kanina, na yung below expectation, yung satisfactory, dissatisfactory, yun, proceed ka na naman doon. So in other words, the teacher is asked to determine the type of performance that would constitute the worst performance or performance which would indicate lack understanding of the concept being measured. So through that, ma-measure din yung estudyante mo kung naiintindihan ba nila yung rubrics na sinabi mo sa kanila, yung i-relay mo sa kanila, or na-meet ba nila yung goal na gusto ng teacher na ipamit sa inyo as student na pinagawa niya yun ng performance task. And then, doon na rin ma-rate ng teacher kung just like for example, hindi mo na-meet yung goal na gusto na gina-expect ng teacher mo, so bibigyan ka niya ng maybe hindi masyadong mataas na grado. So yun. So it is okay. So the underlying reason for this step is for the teacher to capture the criteria that would suit a middle level performance for the concept being measured. In particular, therefore, the approach suggested would result in at least 3 levels of performance. So, it is of course possible to make greater and greater distinctions between performances. For instance, we can compare the middle level performance expectation with the best performance. So, yun yung sabi ni Shirley kanina, yung example niya na if pagkatapos ng activity na pinagawa ng teacher sa inyo, yun doon pa na-meet ba yung level level ng criteria na binigay ng teacher sa iyo or hindi. So yun, ma-differentiate na ng teacher kung ano yung kulang mo, kung ano yung strength mo, ano rin yung weaknesses mo. So yun yung example kanina ni Shirley. So this comparison process can be used until the desired number of score level is reached or until no further distinctions can be made. If meaningful distinction between the score categories cannot be made, then additional score categories would not be created. So that is according to this Brockhart 1999. It is better to have a few meaningful score categories than to have many score categories that are difficult or impossible to distinguish. So a note of caution, it is suggested that each score category should be defined using descriptors of the work rather than value judgment about the work. So that is according to Brockhart 1999. For example, a student's sentences contains no error in subject verb agreements. So it's preferable over student sentence are good, the phrase are no errors, or is quantifiable. So finally, we can test whether our scoring rubrics is reliable by asking two or more teachers to score the same sets of project or output and correlate their individual assessments. So high correlation between the raters imply high rater reliability. So if the score assigned by teachers differ greatly, then such would suggest a way to refine the scoring rubrics we have developed. So it may be necessary to clarify the scoring rubrics so that they would mean the same thing to different students. So now let's proceed to another type of a rubric. So we have two types of a rubric. So we have the general and the task-specific rubrics. So, as the name implies, general rubrics are particularly useful for fundamental skills such as writing, mathematics, problem solving, and general traits like creativity. They contain criteria that are general across that's why they can be reused. These general rubrics can be adapted to different grade levels to make them task specific. So this general rubrics, magagamit natin siya sa pangkalahatan. Lagi natin tatandaan na pag sinabi natin general rubrics, we can use it sa pangkalahatan. Just like for example, in essay, may rubric tayo sa essay na pwede natin gagamitin sa problem solving, na pwede natin gagamitin dun sa creativity. Just like for example sa writing, meron tayong criteria na effort. So ang effort na criteria is pwede rin natin magiging criteria dun sa problem solving. Pwede rin natin magamit dun sa poster making. So yun. So you should always remember yun nga, the general rubrics ay magagamit as a whole. Next one is a task-specific rubric. A task-specific rubric is unique to specific task. You can use a task-specific rubric as reliable assessment of performance on a specific task such as give an answer or specifies conclusion. However, a task-specific rubric is a time-consuming and difficult to create for all the different tasks we'd like to assess. However, it makes scoring easier. So itong task-specific, ang example nito is just like yung teacher mo, nagbigay siya ng project sa'yo, like gumawa ka ng, yung pinagawa ka sa ating ni Ma'am, yung simple motor. Yun, so ibig sabihin, yung rubrics na ibibigay mo dun is specific lang talaga dun sa project na pinagawa ng teacher sa'yo. So, meaning, yung ibibigay so meaning yung criteria na ibibigay ng teacher sa iyo is
Actually, yung sa task-specific rubrics, it talks about yung individual performance. Yun yung magiging base mo doon sa nila. Yun.
Okay, yun nga yung sample yung pinagawa natin.
Tapos yung sa general, pwede siya maging yung mga group activities.
Kalahatan. Yes. So, naintindihan lahat.
Yes po.
So, may addition, or
Violence.
clarification?
Addition.
So, so since naintindihan nyo yung general and task-specific rubrics, now let's proceed to the importance of rubrics. Let's proceed to the importance of rubrics. So, a while ago, we asked you kung ano ba talaga gaano ka-importante yung rubrics, yung scoring rubrics. Now, dito natin malalaman kung ano ba talaga ka-importante yung rubrics. So, rubrics are important. They ensure the constructive alignment we discussed in outcome-based education. With the scoring rubrics, students and teachers are clarified because they are clarified for students the qualities their work should have. This point is often expressed in terms of students' understanding the learning target and criteria for success. For success. For this reason, rubrics help teachers teach. They help. So, naputol na siya. So, that is the reason why is it the rubrics is important because it helps to the teachers na para mas madali sila makabigay ng grado. At the same time, mas madali din dun sa estudyante na gagawa na isang performance task because the rubrics or the criteria that is given to them is nagiging basis nila sa gagawin nila. So,